Hello and welcome everyone to the Varsity Tutors StarCourse series, where I think all of us nature lovers wish we could spend all of our time going off and visiting exotic places and seeing exotic species. But because who's got all that time, we are thrilled to have wildlife cinematographers and photographers like Andy Casagrande able to get us up close and personal with all the animals and places we would really love to go. And fortunately, we've got him here today to show us the secrets to wildlife photography and cinematography. He's an Emmy winner in the field of wildlife cinematography, you know, from Shark Week and Nat Geo and all kinds of exciting places. He's going to tell us some of his secrets, and we'll get to it in just a second. Now, a couple things I want to make sure you know beforehand. One, he's going to talk about being a good teammate. Communicating with your team is important. That's part of today's class. If you see there's a chat box to the right of the screen, he's going to ask you some questions to find out what you know, think, and want to know. So make sure you answer his questions there. Also, if you have any questions for him, don't wait until the end. Keep those asking throughout the class, and in the last 10 minutes or so, I'll interview Andy with your questions. And of course, we can't do a wildlife photography class without doing some actual photography. So have a camera nearby, and in about 35 minutes, we'll give you a chance to lean into the screen, take a selfie with Andy here. If you upload it to Instagram, tag him and Varsity Tutors, you'll be entered to win some of his autograph swag. He's got a cool hat there and some other stuff he's going to autograph for you and send over. The shark clip we'll show him at some point there is one of the cooler 3D printed things I've ever seen. And you'll get a spot in a wildlife club with Varsity Tutors for our after school club series. With all that said, as you can tell, I'm excited. Andy's even more excited, as you'll see. So let's turn it over to your teacher for today, Andy Casagrande.
What's up, guys? I am super excited. Sometimes I get a little too excited and forget what I'm talking about. Guys, when I was a kid, like all I could do was watch animals on television, read books about them. There wasn't really the internet, which is really weird when I was a kid. And my biggest dream, honestly, was to study great white sharks and get as close as possible to them, of course, without getting eaten. So today I want to teach you as much as I can about the tips, the tactics, all the cool gear that I use. And you can ask me any question you want. I got so many cool gadgets here in my workshop, and I got kids of my own. So I've been teaching them since they were the youngest age. I actually just got back from Mexico, taking them diving with great white sharks. They had their GoPros out, getting shots. So I want to try to break down all the barriers, teach you as much as I can. And essentially, if you want to become a wildlife filmmaker, photographer, cinematographer, director, you can do it. So let's get started. All right, guys. So seriously, if you want to take pictures like this, you can see lions in there, great whites, polar bears. They might seem to be almost unattainable, as in the polar bears are way up in the Arctic. The lions are over in Africa. The great whites are in the deep blue sea. But the reality is, working as a wildlife filmmaker, you can get close to these animals, get amazing shots, and I want to help you do it. So let's go. All right, guys. So today we got a snapshot of today is four things: when and where to go, what to bring and be ready for, getting the perfect shot, and number 4, the wildlife of wildlife photography and cinematography. Sorry, my brain is going so fast. I got to slow down here. I got to slow down. But that's kind of a snapshot of today. And all right, so where and when to go. This is critical. If you want to get the ultimate shots of these animals, you can't go to the wrong place. Obviously, you can't go at the wrong time, or you're not going to see them because you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. And a lot of people say there's a saying in photography. It's all about, it's not really the camera you have or the, you don't have to be the most talented person on earth, but it's F8 and being there. And I'll get into those details a little bit later, but essentially when and where to go. Where is the best place in the world to get the best photos of great white sharks? Anybody know? What do we got here? Okay, South Africa, Australia, Hawaii. Yeah. Well, in my opinion, the best places on earth actually vary every year. It's slightly different. Like South Africa used to be one of the greatest places on earth to see great white sharks. But because of seasonality, potentially overfishing, killer whales ripping out their livers and eating them alive, there's all types of different elements that go into wildlife filmmaking. So you got to basically do your research. And for me, my favorite place is, like I said, I was just in Mexico with great whites. Visibility is super crystal clear. The sharks are big. You get male sharks, female sharks. So it really is dependent. And a big part about natural history, wildlife filmmaking, is knowing when and where to go and being there at the right time. So another huge part about getting there and being there at the right time and getting the shot is working with experts and locals. Like the first time I filmed lions, I had never, aside from the zoo, I had never seen a lion, right? A wild lion. So, and the people that live in these locations and live amongst the animals, so to speak, are the best possible guides and experts because they will know exactly where the animals are at, the animals' basic behaviors, their personalities. During the rainy season, you want to go to a certain area in the Serengeti. During the dry season, they're by the watering holes. So again, if you don't have the local knowledge, you're going to struggle. You might get lucky, but in wildlife filmmaking, you want to give yourself the absolute best advantage because you usually have limited time, limited budget, and sometimes you really only have one shot of getting the shot. So it's important to rely on the locals and try to get basically, yeah, it's also nice to rely, like, going there to a foreign country where you're a guest. It's nice to be brought in and get this VIP, like backstage pass to these incredible animals, and working at National Geographic and these other places is like that because I worked on a king cobra film, and I'll tell another story about that. But essentially, I had no idea about them. And I worked with this expert who had devoted their entire life to king cobras. And they taught me everything, not everything, but within a crash course of like 3 days. Also, I did a lot of research on my own before I got there, but there's no substitute for experience. And these experts taught me essentially what they learned over 40 years in 48 hours. And again, it's a crash course, but it really helped me understand the behavior, how to get close, and how to not get bit by a king cobra, because I'm a shark expert, so to speak. I don't like to call myself an expert, but I have a lot of experience with sharks. When they told me they're going to send me to India to film king cobras, I was like, yes, sign me up. And then I was like, oh man, I better read as much as I can about king cobras. I don't know how fast they can strike. I could get the basic details of how big they get, what they eat, where their habitats are, and their basic sort of behaviors. But it's not really till you're in the field up close that it really matters, that you have to understand how fast they can strike, what they do when they're upset, and how to respect them and get close enough to get these amazing shots without getting eaten, bit, or, worse. But again, animals aren't out to get us. It's more that, there's a lot of media hype around animals. And as you can see in this picture right here, these are sharks. I am politely using them almost as a pillow. I'm actually not resting my head on that shark. I'm just getting there for a selfie. And I don't know if you know, but selfies are more deadly than sharks. So this is a shark selfie, which is kind of an interesting paradox there. But anyway, one of the biggest things I learned being a wildlife filmmaker, especially when I got my job at National Geographic, there are so many more talented, professional, all around better filmmakers than me. And I wondered, I kept getting all these amazing jobs and these amazing opportunities. And I thought, oh, I certainly can't be that good. I certainly can't be better than that guy or that girl. And the reality is, you don't have to be the best. What you have to do is work really hard, be passionate, and be a nice person. Like if you're in the field and you're the best cameraman, best camera woman in the world, but you're kind of grouchy and you're rude, you're not nice to work with, people would rather work with a guy who's maybe not as good, but super fun to work with. Because when you're making these films, you're often in the field for a long time. The longest time I spent in the field was 105 days away from my family in the Serengeti National Park, 105 days of nonstop making a film called Super Pride. And I think I got the job because the producers liked me. They thought I was funny. They thought I worked hard. I was passionate. And being a storyteller and having all those traits is critical, right? So yeah, a big part about it is being kind. Kindness is contagious. I'm a big fan of that. It'll go a long way. Trust me. I believe in karma as well. So I'm not going to get too spiritual on you here, but be nice. Okay. And it'll really help you out. Another really easy way to find out where to go is the internet, obviously, but not just, Wikipedia and Google and encyclopedias. Obviously, you want to use credible sources. There's a lot of misinformation out there, but social media, like I've gone on a few jobs recently. I'm like, oh, where's the best sailfish action or marlin, or where are the humpbacks running right now? Running as in, where are they migrating? Where are they moving? You start looking on Instagram or any sort of social media platform. you're going to find hashtags where say hashtag killer whale, hashtag polar bear. And if you search those hashtags, you'll see the most recent shots. Now, not all of them are going to be mind-blowing, you know, Emmy Award-winning shots or worthy of super, professional format, but it does help. And you could reach out to these people. Some of them are random. Some of them are professional filmmakers. I post often about my adventures and use hashtags as well. So hashtags are a really good way to kind of get a quick and dirty, so to speak, research on where the animals are and what they're doing. And then, you know, dig deeper and, you know, you'll learn a lot from there. All right, king cobras. I mentioned that story, right? I'm a shark guy, but king cobras. And well, I had a few little scares actually with king cobras. And one, I'm not even sure I told this story before, but we were working with king cobras, a thing called the king cobra squad in India. King cobras are very territorial, right? And if you build a house or a plantation, or you start farming in their forest and you take it over, which is a big problem for wildlife, to be honest. Deforestation and habitat loss is humans, it's, you know, it is what it is, but we need to kind of share the planet and coexist. Anyway, these king cobra this king cobra squad would go out, someone would call, say, there's a king cobra in my toilet. There's a king cobra in my rafters. There's a king cobra in my bathtub. This is like not a very, this is a pretty common thing that can happen in India and other parts of Asia and in different regions. And basically, these guys go out, catch these king cobras, and they'll relocate them because they don't want the people to get bit. They also don't want the people to lash out and try to kill them. Snakes are revered in India and they're respected, but sometimes if they're a threat to human life, sometimes wildlife loses. So anyway, they capture this king cobra and they put it in pillowcase. That's what they do. And they'll capture it, put it in a pillowcase, and they'll relocate it into another part of the forest. And they tie a big knot in the pillowcase. And I accidentally picked up the king cobra pillowcase, but I grabbed it under the knot. And if you think about it, if you grab it under the knot will protect you from a king trying to bite up through the bag. And I stupidly grabbed it under the knot, and the expert saw me going for under the knot, and he said, "Don't." I'm like, what? He's like, never grab the bag under the knot, because the king cobra can sense your hand, sense the heat, and actually bite you just out of defense. So I'm not even sure I got that approved for this class here, but bottom line is learn from the experts. The king cobra guys, they taught me everything they knew within a short span, and I learned a lot, and I really am fascinated by them. I'm still a little bit on edge around snakes. I'm way more comfortable with sharks, but again, as a filmmaker, you want to learn as much as you can from as many people as you can, and having these opportunities. I never thought in my wildest dreams that I would have filmed king cobras, killer whales, polar bears. I have not filmed leopard seals yet, and I'd really like to do that, but a career as a wildlife filmmaker, photographer, director, producer, it's incredible. And if you want to do it, I can help you do it. So let's keep going here. All right. So what is one thing you should always have with you on a wildlife film shoot? Well, there's not really just one thing, but there's quite a lot of things that I actually like to have. And let's see here. Essentially, you want to bring as many different technologies that you need to get incredible shots, right? But you also want to bring things that keep you safe. And I actually have a list of things, like a top 11, I think, of lists that I never really leave home without. You'll see them right there on the screen. A reusable water bottle, right? We all realize now that single-use plastics are really not great for the environment. You use them for 30 seconds, they last for 30 million years. It's not good, right? Zip ties, you can actually get reusable zip ties as well. You'll always find them to become handy when you need to run cabling, or even just hold a tarp down over a hide. A hide is something that you get inside of to blend in with the natural environment behind you, so that the animals, you're not always going to fool them, but they'll be more natural and more relaxed if you have a hide. Anyway, getting sidetracked there. Gorilla tape. I got a bunch of it behind me. It's my favorite sort of like all-purpose sort of fix-it-all tool, a multi-purpose tool. Instead of bringing a whole tool case, you could bring a Leatherman or a Gerber or whatever, and you got a little bit of everything right there. Super glue. Super glue helps you with broken lens mounts, broken skin. Actually, super glue was, I believe, designed in the World Wars to actually seal yourself up if you get a bad cut. Now, I'm not giving medical advice here, so let's move on. You can Google it, check it out. Often we will have paramedics in the field. That's not on my list because I don't always have one. A headlamp. Headlamps are critical because I'm often working from sunrise to sunset, and some of the best action happens before the sun comes up and after the sun goes down. A soldering iron. The cameras we use now are essentially, I'm going to get into the cameras here later, really, but they are essentially supercomputers. But I've learned a lot when things break, if you take them apart very carefully, you can actually fix a lot of things in the field. And if you don't fix it and it's broken and your main camera goes down, that's not going to look good for anybody. And it's not going to look good as in you're never going to get the shot. So I always bring a soldering iron, and you can get electronic ones or battery powered, which is really cool. A tourniquet, which is essentially when I travel, I actually always bring a little medical kit. Tourniquet, I can't remember if I went this before, but it's a super basic life-saving device that if you get basically catastrophic blood loss or an issue where you're bleeding to death, exsanguating, you want to be able to deploy one of these. I've got a YouTube video about how you can Google it. It's super easy. You put it high and tight, you crank the windlass, you stop the bleed, and then you get them to professional medical care as quickly as possible. All right, here, what else we got here? And then we also, one of my favorite things, which is really inexpensive, but one of the things I never leave home without, this. It's an air blower. It looks like a little rocket. And sometimes when I'm actually going through airports, they're like, "Sir, what is that?" That looks like a bomb. No, it doesn't look that well. I guess it looks like a little Elon Musk rocket there. And I usually like blow a little air in their face. And I'm like, it's just to blow dust. If you're working in an environment, the desert, in the Serengeti, even in places with ice and snow and whatnot, having one of these to not be, so you're not touching your lens, but you're lightly blowing off the sediment, the dust, whatever, is critical. It sounds pretty commonsensical, but if you have a dirty lens, your shot's going to be dirty. If there's dust covering up the front of your lens, and I've worked in dust storms and in snowstorms and all these type of environments that make your gear dirty. Plus, you'll learn that if you take care of your gear will take care of you. So one of these is super critical. Let's see what else we got on the list there. A solar powered charging hub. I've got one upstairs, actually. It's actually perched up on the window. I recharge it every day through solar power, which is awesome. Often when you're working in the field, there's sunshine. Sometimes there's not. You're working in the high Arctic or somewhere where it's 6 months of darkness or pretty much dark all the time. But anyway, those are the things I like to bring, and a good attitude. Remember, be nice, be nice. So let's see what else we got here. All right. Exotic animals live in extreme habitats. Obviously, you need to be prepared. You need to pack accordingly. And with changing of the climate, I'm not going to get into those details there, but, things do change. You go to an area where it's supposed to be perfect weather and everything's awesome, and it's freezing cold, or it's raining, or there's a hailstorm. So there is a way to pack light. My wife is always amazed how I can pack for a 6-month trip, 6 weeks, 6 days, whatever it is. I pretty much always bring the same thing. I'm always prepared with basically rain jackets, multiple changes of clothes. You want to layer up. And, I'm not the coolest dressed dude, and I've probably worn this shirt for a decade, but it serves me well. And you want to basically protect yourself from sun exposure and all the elements, and expect the unexpected, expect yourself to need almost everything, but don't pack too much, because you kind of want to bring just what you need. And yeah. All right, here we go. What else here? Safety. You're responsible, obviously, for your own safety. Just like anything in life, you're crossing the street, you're jumping on the school bus, you're playing basketball with your friends, whatever it is, you can go, as hard as you want and as intense as you want. But when it comes to wildlife, you really need to do your research, right? So I often will have, like I said, if I plan for the worst, hope for the best kind of stuff. With shark diving, I'll have a safety diver if I think I need one. With great white sharks, if I'm outside of the cage, It's not really smart to swim alone with big predators, or even work alone with big predators. Just like scuba diving in general, you want to have a dive buddy. So I'll often have a safety diver whose sole job is to, maintain visual on everything that's going around you. And, I do the same when I'm filming. I sort of do this: 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4. I'm kind of constantly, I trust my safety diver, but at the same time, I almost pretend like they're not there. As in, if I let my guard down for a second and they, for some reason, have an issue and they're not there for me, then I sort of consider it my fault. But let's see what else here. Just be respectful, right? You want to not get too close. And here's a perfect example with these killer whales, right? So I got the call to go to New Zealand to film with the world's foremost killer whale expert. I was super pumped about it. But at the same time, I had my only previous experience with killer whales was on land. I was filming them with a long lens. They were rushing up onto the beaches where they hunt the sea lions in Patagonia. That was unbelievable. Like, that was one of the highlights of my career, to see these gigantic killer whales coming up. And I know a lot of people don't like the predation activity, the hunting, the killing. It's part of the circle of life. I don't think it's amazing that some animals dying, but I do think it's amazing their predatory skills and their tactics they use. And anyway, killer whales. I'm in New Zealand. I'm getting ready. Everything's dialed in. My cameras are all ready, and I'm heading out offshore with a scientist. And, I often, you get into this groove sort of thing, groove, so to speak. And with wildlife, usually things take, you got to put in the effort. You got to put in the hours. You got to wake up every morning before the sun, go to bed after, all the kind of stuff that really makes it amazing, but it's hard work. I'm in New Zealand. We're heading offshore. It's like day one. I'm ready to go, but I don't have my wetsuit on. We're just cruising. And then suddenly the scientist screams, "Killer whales, there they are. Let's go. It's got to go. You got to go now." And I'm like, oh my God, my camera was ready, but I personally, my wetsuit wasn't on. My fins were over there. My mask, everything wasn't as bad as I'm making it sound. But in my mind, I thought, oh my God, my suit's not on. I'm not ready for this. And I was flustered. I won't lie. So I'm about to splash in. I finally get ready. I'm about to roll off the back of the rubber boat. And, I remember, I'm like, oh my God, I forgot. I'm really sorry, but I forgot. Hey, how do I know if a killer whale is not happy with me? I'm too close to it. I'm invading its space, or it's got a calf with it and the mother is getting anxious or nervous. How do I know these things? And like great whites, sharks, they'll gape their jaws. Smaller sharks will drop their fins and swim in an exaggerated fashion. You could tell with sharks, or if you spend enough time with them, you could tell if they're not happy with you. The killer whales, I forgot to ask. And as I'm about to splash in, I asked the question, and she looks at me, the scientist. She's like, "Listen, dude, there's absolutely nothing you can do about it anyway if they're not happy with you." And she pushed me in the water. And I was like, woohoo. So I jumped in, and there's a shot there you saw on the screen there of this big killer whale that came right up to me, swam in, checked me out. And I realized when she pushed me in and said there's nothing I could do about it anyway, that she was well aware that this pod was a pod that she knew. They were orcas that were hunting stingrays and sharks, actually. I was working on the story about the great whites and the killer whales. And they had no interest in trying to eat me or attack me or anything like that. But I like to respect animals. I like to protect them and learn as much as I can about them. And I forgot to ask those questions before I went diving. So plus I was not expecting them to show up like that. So another thing that you should know is always be ready. Always be ready. Always be ready. All right, so getting the perfect shot, right? That's a picture there of my red weapon camera system. And now we're going to talk about some of the cameras, right? And I want to make this clear right off the bat. You do not need the most expensive cameras on the planet. Even the medium expense cameras, you can get some of the most amazing shots just with a GoPro. Check it out. This is one of my favorite cameras on the planet. This isn't a commercial, right? I have so many GoPros. I love GoPro because they've made a professional content capture device in something that can literally fit in your hand. You can fit it in your mouth. You can put these things anywhere, and they really revolutionized the way we capture wildlife because you're putting these different cameras and different angles in places that you could never do any other way. And I'm going to show you some really cool specialty gear next. But again, I want to sort of debunk the myth that to be a professional filmmaker, you need the best cameras on earth. Now, I've been super lucky to work with the best cameras on earth. And I will say there's definitely benefits to the bigger, fancier cameras, but there's also benefits to the little GoPro. So that's the GoPro. And then, you know, a little step up from there is like not a wireless, a mirrorless. This is a mirrorless Sony camera. It's got a little flip out screen. It's tiny. It can go around your neck. You can get great still photographs. You can get great video with this. So I love taking these as well in my kit because sometimes, again, the GoPro quality is good, but this is a bit better. It's a step up, but I can't put this where I can put a GoPro. So GoPros are $300-400. This is more like $1,000 to $3,000. And then you start stepping up to even bigger cameras. This is a DSLR camera, a 1DX Mark III. This is really great for super slow, super fast moving animals to take shots of cheetahs as they're running by. It's got a super, I guess I don't have a card in here because that's another thing. You should actually always be prepared. I actually just shot an interview with this today and the card is uploading right now. And that's why I'm not prepared. But this thing's a great stills camera and a great video camera. And it's a DSLR. So it's slightly different from the mirrorless and it's slightly more expensive. And then it just keeps going up the line, right? This is a red camera. A red digital cinema camera. It's the Dragon. I used to have the Epic, upgraded to the Dragon. And then this is an amazing camera. The same cameras they use in Hollywood, but my newest red camera is in here. 1 second. And this is a red weapon camera. Now it's funny they call it a weapon because when I put this on a customs document that I'm traveling with a red weapon camera, they're like, why did you bring a weapon into Mozambique? I'm like, no, it's not really a weapon. It's just a really weird marketing term for this camera system. So this is my go-to camera for Shark Week, for all the cool shark stuff I do. I can mount a monitor on top. I can shoot straight out of the back of it. And it's one of my favorite camera systems. It is expensive. You know, we're now, if we pull that list up again, we talked about like $1,000 cameras. We talked about, well, $100 cameras and so on. But the reality is, once again, you don't need the fanciest cameras in the world. You know, I even have a super slow motion camera. You've seen those shots on Shark Week or even the BBC of the great whites coming out of the water in super slow motion, right? That's called high speed photography or cinematography. And it's kind of sounds weird. Like, why would it be called high speed when it's in slow motion? Well, if you think about it, when you're watching video, the majority of stuff you watch on television is going to be 24 frames per second. That's 24 little images, photographs that are playing in 1 second. If you're shooting high speed, meaning high speed, you're shooting 1,000 photographs per second, then it basically can play out. I don't know if you remember as a kid, those little flip books when the bear dancing across the street or whatever, or through the forest. You're flipping through basically frames right there. And if you put 1,000 frames in a book, it's going to take a long time to flip through that in that slow motion. If you put 24 frames in that book, it's going to go through by 1 second. But essentially 1 second can turn into 30 seconds or more with super slow motion. And those cameras can cost $150,000 up to $200,000. They use them in Hollywood. It sounds ridiculous. It's more expensive than many houses out there. The most expensive, well, I'm sure there's cars expensive as that. But anyway, back to the whole point is you don't need the most expensive camera on the planet. If you treat a GoPro like a real camera, and here's a quick tip. A lot of people that I see shooting GoPros, it's in your pocket, you pull it out, it's in your backpack. If you have a giant thumbprint on the middle of your screen, or there's a piece of hair, or you had lunch and there's a little bit of peanut butter, whatever. If you have something on your lens, again, the same thing with this little air blower. You want to treat this like a Hollywood camera, and you'll get Hollywood results, right? Make sure, and you can use your shirt. I often do one of these real quick, as long as my shirt's clean, and you got a super crystal clear lens on the front there, and you can get amazing shots. So. Also, specialty gear. I think we're going into specialty gear here soon here. Well, let's talk about, let's quickly go to like the elements here and the certain essentials, right? So like if you want to go to, say, the Serengeti and fly a drone, They do not allow you to do that in the Serengeti unless you jump through every hoop and get every single permit, because they don't want people, quote unquote, harassing the animals. So you can get off-road permission, nighttime permission. You can get sort of all the permissions you need, but you have to do it respectfully, and you got to get the permits to do it. And the cool thing about working for National Geographic, Discovery Channel, BBC, is that they will get the permits. They have the researchers, they have the time, the producers to get the permits, get access to those animals. And like, you don't want to break those rules, because if you go to the Serengeti and they see you flying a drone without a permit, they're going to put your name on a blacklist and you're not going to be allowed back in. Plus, it's just not cool, right? There's other places in Africa, other places in areas where you can use drones with lions or other type of predators on the savannah, but just respect the rules. And, you know, there's almost always a way to get a permit if you really need to, as long as it's ethical and you're not, you know, messing with the animals. And even when I'm flying a drone, right? Like if I see the animal starts to take notice of it, and especially if they're hunting or being hunted, that's a big no-no, right? You do not want to interfere with nature and distract an animal. Like in Patagonia, when we were filming the killer whales coming up on the beaches, we had to arrive 3 hours before high tide, and we couldn't leave till 3 hours after high tide. The reason being, high tide is when they come in to hunt. And the seals, you don't want them to be distracted by a cameraman or camerawoman on the shore with a big lens and a tripod. So we had to dig little trenches, hide ourselves. And you saw in that last shot there, I'm wearing what is called a ghillie suit, which is like what the military wears to blend in so that you're not seen by the animals. So I often will wear camouflage and various things to try to go unseen, but they usually see you, but not always. Sometimes it actually works pretty well. All right, so the best shots, you know, you want to get creative. And, you know, I often like to try to think, like, I don't often like using lights. I know Hollywood shooters love lights. It's all, and if you think about it, photography, what it means is photography. Photo like a photon, like a beam of light. Graphy like calligraphy. Photography is writing with light. So when I'm under the water, great white sharks do not wear headlamps. They don't have flashlights. Their seals don't either. So I often like to use ambient light, as in natural light. So sometimes, you know, if you're working in an area where you absolutely need to use, say, infrared light, which is really cool. If you're filming lions at nighttime, you can use infrared light where the lions don't see it, but the camera does. So you can get really great shots at nighttime with infrared light. But, you know, you want to get creative, and just, I like to try to start thinking of like the animal, and thinking about like how they think and how they hunt. Like if I was a great white, I would hunt, I would hang by this reef right by the seal colony. So I try to get a shot, like the POV of a great white shark cruising past the reef of the seal colony. Or, you know, or a giraffe. If you want to get a perspective of a giraffe, a drone is kind of a cool angle, or a ladder, or a bucket truck, or whatever. Depending on your budget, they'll give you, you know, access to a number of cool things. But try to like think around, like, you know, like just think and act like the animal, and you'll start to really, and it helps convey the story. It helps tell the story. You wouldn't shoot like a cheetah. How do I explain? Like, you know, sometimes you shoot handheld because you want to get that sense of urgency, and the animals are running or fleeing. But, you know, trying to shoot a cheetah on a long lens, 1,000mm lens, handheld, would be kind of funny. But actually, now that I think of it, you know, if you're being chased by a cheetah at like 90 miles per hour or whatever, it's probably going to be pretty frantic and pretty crazy. So maybe we should do that. It might make people a little nauseous watching that footage, but also you can use things like camera cars. I got a camera car up there, different camera traps, like just kind of like try to immerse yourself in the world of wildlife. And here we go. We're going to get into creative camera rigs, right? I'm right there up in the Arctic, shooting in the Arctic Circle in Norway, filming killer whales, and it was cold, right? So I knew it was going to be cold. I'm wearing a 9mm wetsuit there. I got GoPros rigged to the weapon, the AK weapon. And, you know, you kind of want to, for me, I often will build these crazy camera systems, and I'm going to show you a couple of them right now. So if you look here, this is what I want to like often call my most epic failure. This was a 360 virtual reality camera, and you'll see what happens to it. I've got another one here, and there's a reason why I don't have that one anymore, and you'll see right now. So Kind of embarrassing. I was just trying to get a cool shot. I wasn't honestly trying to let it bite it, but I didn't pull back in time. And I also didn't think it through. I didn't have a tether on that camera. So now I'm like trying to like stab it like a, I don't know, like a strawberry or an olive or something. And it basically sank to like 150 feet. I asked the boat captain, hey, you mind if I go down and get that? He's like, absolutely not. Those sharks will eat you. And I disagreed with him, but at the same time, it probably would have been a little bit irresponsible to do that. It was irresponsible to not have a tether, but I have another system. VR 360 is a really cool perspective. There's 6 different cameras. There's so many different rigs for virtual reality, but that one was my most epic failure, but I'll show you in some additional videos here where I redeem myself. But what's cool about this is it gives you that perspective of being there completely. You can look behind you and you see that lion. You can look down below and you see that shark coming up, because it's essentially shooting in every single direction: north, east, south, west, up, down, left, right, 360 space, and it's 360 VR. I'm pretty sure you guys know virtual reality, the Oculus, all that stuff. So I really like shooting in VR. But also, we'll jump here to the next one. Another really cool one is called time slice or bullet time. This is what I'm shooting for the BBC. And essentially, I have that rig right here, or part of it. This is only 1/3 of it, but if you look close, bunch of GoPros. And you can see me also there. Remember, I was telling you to keep the lenses clean? I'm wiping the bubbles off of the GoPro lens, because every single one of those cameras has to be operating, has to get a clear, clean shot. If one battery dies, one card malfunctions, the whole shot is ruined. And this shot essentially is like the Matrix shot with Keanu Reeves, but with sharks. Now, the BBC has this footage. Unfortunately, I can't show you the shot, but essentially it gets you that cool perspective of wrapping around an animal as it's in full pursuit, full hunting mode. But as you can see here, they kept bumping the rig, smashing into it. They would knock the cameras out of alignment. These ones are loose right now, but when I was in, underwater, I locked them down as much as I can. And you get a really cool perspective. And I built this all in my garage here. It's literally, I got a friend who's got a metal shop. He bent the rail for me. I got GoPro as my sponsor. They're an amazing company, and they love wildlife as well, not just snowboarding and skiing and surfing and all that, but they really support me behind my wildlife missions. They try to capture unique shots to show you guys, inspire you guys, because like I said, when I was a kid, I never saw a great white shark in the wild until I was 22 years old. But the first time I saw one was on television. So having the opportunity to shoot shots to inspire people, not just kids, but adults, is a huge privilege, a huge honor, and I'm addicted to it. So this is my bullet time slice rig. And it's really fun to shoot, but also very, very challenging. So I'm gonna keep moving on here. The fin cam. So fin cams are super cool. Sorry, I'm gonna grab it here. Fin cams are super cool because they give you this amazing perspective of actually riding along the dorsal fin of a hammerhead, a great white. And it's essentially a spring-loaded clamp. Again, I built it in my garage. It's got syntactic foam, a couple of springs. I put a VHF transmitter on there. I disable it or take it off when I travel because you don't want to bend the antenna. But essentially, it also has a saltwater dissolve link that dissolves off. You can see here, the hammerhead came up, was interested in kind of almost trying to bite the camera because it was shiny. I deployed it on the fin. Then you get a cool perspective of what it's like to cruise around, and then check it out. Part of this footage was used in a big study about hammerheads that was published in an extremely prestigious scientific journal. That's why I have this thing called Cinema Science, using cinematography technology to convey and perpetuate science, to get it to be cool, right? Because just to make it cool. I'm a cameraman, and I wanted to be a scientist at first, and then I decided I was better at being a cameraman, building gadgets. And this essentially is the fin cam. It doesn't look that cool, but the shots look cool. And when it pops up, it floats to the surface, and it's just like an ice cube. And this transmits line of sight 14, 20 miles away if the conditions are good, and you get it back. Sometimes they try to eat it. Not eat it. They spit it out. I won't lie. Most sharks are smart enough to realize it's like a inanimate object and something that they really don't like. So let's keep going on here. All right, tow camera. So my tow camera, these things are really fun, right? This is a great white shark chasing this, which is essentially made in my garage here. This is a hydro stabilizer you'd put on a outboard engine. This is a downrigger for fishing. and a cable that you tow it with, and they come up and they swim and they chase that. And they're just curious, really, really curious predators. So they'll come right up and check it out. And yeah, again, it's like low tech, but you get a pretty high tech result. Again, GoPros, you could put a bigger camera on here, but it would make it all around bigger. I actually had a really big one that I used to use, but it looked too much like a seal. And I did not want the sharks to come and hit that. But I did build other things like bite cams. Let's see which one we got next here. I believe, oh, actually, yes. Before we do the volcano thing, but the bite cam, bite cam is right here. Essentially, it's all made out of plastic. So again, I didn't want them to hurt themselves. They can bite on this, they can spit it out. It's all plastic that goes inside there. It kind of resembles the shape of a seal. And but the volcano, now check this out. So that volcano there, I was in Iceland this summer, and I was flying my drone, and I managed to get a couple of these amazing shots. And as I was getting that shot flying up there, and the drone was brand new too, it basically got to the top of the volcano, and then it started saying excessive heat warning, emergency landing. And the screen went completely black. The screen on my monitor, and I was like, just kind of went white because I had captured this cool footage, but the drone essentially had gotten so hot that if you look closely, it's hard to see. It started melting everything on the drone, melting the camera, the sensors. Look at the sensors here. It's hard to tell, but they're completely chewed up and melted. But the story here is that the drone completely went dead. I still had the controller in my hands, and I realized I can't give up. You know what? I'm going to keep throttling the throttle, keep my finger on the throttle. And I kept holding it. The screen was black. A minute went by. My wife, Emma, was there. She's like, no, don't tell me. Did you just lose the drone inside the volcano? And I'm like, I couldn't even talk really because I was so heartbroken. And then suddenly, because I was holding my thumb on that throttle, suddenly on the screen, no picture came back, but the metadata from the drone, the flight data, it said it was at 2,000 feet. It was traveling at this speed. I'm like, oh my God, it's alive. It's alive. Like the fact that these blades didn't completely melt off. You can see there, all of this melted, all of that melted. This was okay, but the whole front of the drone, everything in the sensors, but I never gave up. I was able to bring it back, and it worked out okay, right? So the first shot I showed you was an epic failure where I wasn't prepared for it. This one, I wasn't prepared to lose my drone in a volcano. I never gave up. And that's another good lesson for you guys, is to never give up. It's just not really in my DNA to do that. So kind of a cool story where this drone, I'm taking it out to California tomorrow to fly and film some great white sharks. And it's going to be awesome. It still works. Now, the sensors don't really work for the auto landing. It kind of wants to crash and crash land. So I have to land it in my hand every time. But once you get good at flying drones, you can do that too. And yeah, got the drone back. All right. So what would be your favorite animal to get up close photos of? So, all right. Leopard seal, giraffe. That's cool. Okay. All right. Lions, polar bears, blue whales. All right. So, well, let's see some of these answers. Well, listen. For me, like sharks, I know it's a bit shallow or whatever, but like for me, like sharks are my biggest passion. So I think it's great that you guys are interested in all of these, like bald eagles. I actually had the opportunity to film bald eagles, which was really cool. And yeah, man, some of these are like, I'm lucky to have shot a lot of these animals on here. And really, let's get to like some of the most important things here, guys. And that is essentially, wildlife cinematography is so important because it actually teaches us like to connect with nature, and like it's sometimes the closest that any of us will ever get. And that like it's to me, it's like I get kind of emotional, right? Because some of these areas that I've gone to for years and years and years, you're starting to see less and less animals, the habitat loss. But people like you, kids like you, adults like you, people that care, and that's what's so important about filmmaking, wildlife filmmaking, is like allowing people to vicariously experience this and see these animals, sometimes even better than I see them. When I'm using a 1,000 millimeter lens, filming a lion, and you see its eyeball like this, I'm seeing it through like a little black and white viewfinder sometimes, sweating bullets, getting it, stung by mosquitoes and bees and whatever else, army ants. So like, to me, it's like important that we basically allow people to understand how important they are. And I think films, natural history films really get into the mind of the animal, and it inspires people just like it did for me as a kid. And I think like, if you can go back and tell your friends, your teachers, your family, anyone like that, we are all super interconnected. It's so important that we respect, butterflies to polar bears, to like, everything is so interconnected on the planet. It's important we realize that we're a super species. We're super smart. We've kind of taken over, but we need to sort of give back a bit. We need to play nice. Again, be nice, not just to your friends and family and strangers, but to animals as well. So let's see here. If this is how, like, to make this your life, you could start practicing now, like going out in your garden. Right now, I'm sure it's starting to get cold in some areas. Like, don't go out on the lake, on the ice by yourself. Like, I did 6 weeks of ice diving in Alaska, but they trained me to do it. I was diving under 10 feet of sea ice. We had to cut giant holes into the sea ice. But again, like, you can go out here. I live in Florida, and there's like little lizards. There's cool birds. You see bald eagles flying past. There's alligators in the Everglades, but also even like squirrels, right? Like, and you can't really control what animals do. So you should be creative on how you capture them. Like, there's some great YouTubers out there that get great videos of domestic, not domestic, but wildlife that lives in their neighborhood. And like, for you to get out there, like, I think like you can essentially, like, even if you go on vacation with your parents and you got a GoPro, or you're like, you can also reach out to people like me and reach out to networks and look for internships. There's so many different assets and different resources online that you can hit up and get involved with. And even your schools, like my son, his school, they have like a media center. Even when he was in kindergarten, he was on the news, like reporting live from, this elementary school. So, it's there, it's accessible. And again, you don't need the fanciest cameras in the world. But you remember, you can't really control wildlife, but you can control yourself, right? So make sure you respect them and do your best to protect them, spread the good words about them. And I know I went pretty fast. I don't think I just kept talking. I don't know if I got all your questions there, Brian. I'm sorry, man. That's like a motor mouth. I don't even think I took a breath this whole time.
So there you have it, everyone. Andy kind of likes his job, I guess, is the big lesson here. So, hey, thank you. The enthusiasm is such a point for all of you out there who have an interest in this. I think Andy's probably the best possible reason to continue pursuing that interest, to take his challenge and get out and take some pictures like someone was paying you to do it. Kind of, to challenge yourself to be a photographer, to do that job maybe this weekend or over the holidays or something like that. So you can, kind of start building a portfolio and building that experience. So thanks so much, Andy. We got probably time for a few questions. So everybody, keep your questions coming in. First thing we want to do is give you your first photography opportunity. But we're going to go full screen here in just a second to Andy, give everybody an opportunity. Lean into the screen, take a photo with one of the world's great all-time photographers himself there. And remember, you'll be entered to win some of that autographed ABC for Explorer swag there. Not the cameras, but that shark clip is so cool. You 3D printed that. You can tell them about that in a second. And a spot in Wildlife Creature Club with Varsity Tutors. There's more information on your screen about that. But let's go full screen. You guys have those cameras ready, and let's do it.
Yeah, guys. I'm going to hold up a couple of my gear here just to switch it up, right? Because I think, like, if you can build this, not this, but, you can get amazing shots. And again, you don't need to have the best cameras or 20 GoPros, but and don't forget to tag me on Instagram, guys. I'll share your images. I think social media is a great thing. I'm going to shut up again so we can get some more photos here. What else can I hold up? Oh, I even forgot to show this. Another camera system, a digital DSLR camera system here. It's really cool. And I get a lot of cool shots with this guy. And my dog's barking outside. I forgot to let her in.
That's perfect. Perfect. That's what we wanted. We wanted photography and wildlife. We got them both all in one shot there. So, hey, thanks so much. Hopefully everybody got some great photos there. Obviously, you learned some techniques to get great photos today. We'll have those official Instagram handles up on the way out for you to enter to win that prize package and the spot in Wildlife Future Club. Obviously, you don't have to wait to see if you won. There's information on your screen if you'd like to register and start exploring the great world of wildlife here. I think Andy makes a couple appearances with some content he did and some other challenges that you can do courtesy of Andy there. Now, you guys have asked some pretty amazing questions. We're a little over time already, but we want to get a couple of questions answered out here. And I think one that came up a lot, I think people were kind of fascinated by that air blower. We've got a lot of amateur photographers out here, kind of in the way that what do you recommend for, that was sort of in the moment camera maintenance. Are there any things that people should know about maintaining? You finally invest in a good camera, you want to take that out there. What should we be doing between shoots or during shoots to make sure we take care of our equipment?
I worked with a lot of filmmakers, and I see some of them are really, really obsessive compulsive about their gear. And that's me. Like I make sure everything is super crystal clear, clean. The sensor is always clean. This is a great way to blow every dust off. You don't want to sort of wipe dust into your lens or onto the camera bodies. I always basically, there's sensor cleaning functions on pretty much every camera. You go into the menu, you hit clean sensor. It basically does these super fast, like ultrasonic vibrations that will shake dust off there. Make sure you look at your sensors. If you want to become a good filmmaker, I made a few mistakes early on where I just put the lens on, started shooting. If you have any sensor dust, a tiny little speck of dust, a little tiny hair, like even one of your eyelashes, it can ruin your whole shot. I know that sounds crazy, but keep your gear as clean as possible, as dry as possible. I am super, as you can see, organized. I have little bins for all my batteries, different bins for cables, so that if anytime someone calls me, National Geographic calls me, Andy, we want you to go film leopard seals tomorrow in Antarctica. I'll pull my ice gear, I'll pull the cameras, everything's ready to go. So just be ready, but also use the gear. You don't want to like baby it too much. Don't be afraid to get it a bit dirty, but try to have your batteries always charged. Back up your cards. That's another thing. Like, again, I was a little embarrassed. I didn't have the card in this camera because, I like to be ready for anything and have your cameras charged, batteries ready to go, cards formatted, backed up. Always try to back things up twice at least. You don't want to take the ultimate shot and then lose it because you lose the hard drive or it gets corrupted. What else? Just like, treat the gear. If you treat your gear good, your gear will treat you good. I've worked with a few guys and girls that just throw their gear in the back of the car. They get it dirty. They'll clean it on the next job. Not all of them. And some of them still perform well, but just respect the gear and it'll last a long time. I still have cameras that are a decade old that I can turn on. They still work. Sensors pristine, perfect. So I think just like treat it with respect, just like you do the wildlife, your parents, everyone else, and everybody's happy. Gear's happy, you're happy. Instead of happy wife, happy life, happy gear, happy shot. I don't know. That's not going to work.
Entire good year. We'll figure it out. We'll, it's rhymes or alliteration. Thank you for that. That was really helpful. Hey, a lot of others, speaking of respecting your gear, taking care of it, all those kind of having it ready to go. A lot of questions about some of those kind of creative rigs, especially I think the fin cam. How do you go about getting that back? Can you talk us through? So you've got one, it's out there. What are the next steps for you to make sure you get it back and make sure you don't lose that footage?
So depending on the species, and once again, that was from the beginning, when and where to go. Also, what and why you're doing it, right? If I want to film great white sharks hunting in South Africa, why? Because I want to get a shot of them jumping out of the water, breaching. Then I'll adjust. Sometimes I use bigger GoPros with super long 24-hour battery packs. If I put these on bull sharks, they almost always want to shake them off. So I'll use a smaller system. But like I said, it's got a dissolve system. And when it pops up, when this dissolves, the clamp basically opens up, floats up to the surface. Sometimes if I know they're great whites and it's a giant, out in the middle of the ocean in Guadalupe, I'll put a satellite tag on there. This is just VHF, and I use basically a Yagi antenna. I don't know if you've seen them on TV, but it's basically looks like an antenna that'd be on the top of your house or an old house with like a radio antenna. And you use that to track the signal. You hear beeps. And as you hear the beep, as it gets stronger, you get close to it, then you see it. We even put one of these on a mako shark in New Zealand. It didn't pop off. We went there the next day, 24 hours later in the middle of the ocean, and I found it. So These are really cool. I custom build them. I worked at National Geographic on staff for quite a few years, and they have a whole critter cam division where they build super high-tech cameras, and they've got all these engineers. I learned a lot from them, and I learned that I could build similar gear, not as fancy, but I could put accelerometers on here, daily diary tags, depth, temperature, speed, acceleration, light levels, salinity, all the cool stuff that they're getting. I can also put a payload on here, a package, so to speak, and get similar shots. And on my YouTube channel, I have videos of great white sharks cruising around where they're having altercations with other sharks. I believe I've got more hammerhead stuff on there. To me, it's like the secret life of sharks, the secret life of predators is really fascinating to me. And again, you guys hit me up on Instagram, send me a message. I'm happy to, if I don't respond immediately, send another one. I will get back to you. It's just sometimes I get overwhelmed with the messaging and whatnot, but I'm happy to help. I asked a lot of questions when I started out, and I still do. Every single day I learn something new. Jump on YouTube. There's so many great tutorials. There's so many great other filmmakers out there. I'm definitely not the best. I'm one of the most passionate, I believe. But again, you're going to learn from a lot of different people, and I have a lot of contacts I'm happy to try to hook you guys up with. And there's plenty of wildlife courses in school too. Anyway, I'm rambling again. And again, I apologize. I went through that so fast that I saw your questions coming in, but my mind kept just talking. I apologize.
That's why we do this at the end, Ed. We plan that in. So be prepared for anything. Wildlife gets wild, including wildlife photographers can get wild out there. So to that point about following up on YouTube channel, Instagram, all those kind of things. A lot of you have been asking some amazing questions about your particular situation and what gear to buy. Rather than turn this into a 20-minute infomercial about the best camera for this situation, that situation, all that. We'll kind of encourage you to take all that to social media there. I know Andy gave a tour of some of the most exotic stuff. Definitely showed us some cool things you can do with a GoPro, but love all those questions. If we asked all of them, I think we'd be here forever because Andy's got stories about all of them as well.
Yeah,
so,
you ask me one question, I'll give you like a 25-minute answer that just barely answered that question, but answered 15 others. So that's just how my brain works.
That's the fun of it. Hey, one more. I think probably have time for one more. Because we want to make it's school night. We want to make sure people get where they need to go on time, get some homework and things done. We had a ton of questions about your favorite animals to shoot. I think you've mentioned a few times it's sharks and in particular great whites. So maybe give me a two-parter. Why are great whites your favorite? And two, what animal have you not shot yet that you're most hoping to shoot next?
So gray whites are my favorite just because it was like the first, I guess, big iconic predator I saw as a kid. I'm sure I saw lions. And when I say saw, it was on television. But I think, look at those teeth behind me. I don't know. It's like for some people, that's fear. It's like, oh my God, that thing's going to kill me. But for me as a kid, that was fascination. Like, is that thing real? Could it really be designed that way? Like, why? Humans are way more like sort of, I don't know how to explain it. We're just more not boring looking. There's plenty. Look at The Rock and all these crazy, big, strong dudes. But for me, it was just like the ultimate sea monster, but I wasn't afraid of it. I was fascinated by it. So I could talk forever about great whites, but one animal that I haven't had the chance to film, and I mentioned about it right just before about being prepared, is leopard seals. I really want to go to Antarctica and film leopard seals because they are really amazing looking. They get really big. They're really charismatic. They'll come up and check you out. And that's one thing I forgot to mention is behaviors and personalities. Every great white shark acts unique and differently. Every elephant seal, the great whites eat them. Every leopard seal will act slightly differently. They're like people. They have unique personalities. And that's another big part about wildlife filmmaking is understanding that each animal is going to react differently. They're not all going to react the same. And for me, like I said, leopard seals are big. You guys hear that? Nat Geo, anyone watching Discovery, BBC, give me a call. I'm ready to go. Or maybe I'll just go there myself. I'll figure it out. But Brian, you're the man, buddy.
Well, like you said, you've got the equipment packed and ready to go. You just put out the call for leopard seals. Hopefully that call comes in the next few minutes here. Thank you so much, man. So much great information. Obviously, a ton of enthusiasm, some cool demonstrations, some amazing photo and video footage. I forgot to mention at one point, pretty much every photo in that deck we went through, plus all the videos, were all yours. So it was really cool to see your work in action and then be able to hear about how you do it. Thanks to all of you out there for some amazing questions and participation. Chat was absolutely rocking. So Andy brought the energy, and you guys definitely reciprocated. So thanks to all of you out there. Thanks again to Andy. We'll leave everybody with, we told you guys to take pictures. So here is the information of who to tag to be entered to win a Spot and Wildlife Creature Club and some ABC for Explore swag. And we'll see everybody back here soon.
See you guys.